Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Okay, wonderful. We are recording. Okay, welcome everybody again to another episode of our show. Today, bringing you another really fascinating guest involved in creating a better tomorrow for so many people out there. Today, we have the honor of being joined by Ashley Gaines, who is the Vice President and Head of the Breast Cancer franchise for the United States Oncology Business Unit at AstraZeneca. There, she's responsible for overseeing commercialization in the United States for Trueap and HER2 for a variety of future breast cancer assets as well as new indications. Ashley joined AstraZeneca back in 2014, has led commercial teams across various United States and global franchises, not only in other cancers, women's cancer, lung cancer, hematological cancers, but also infectious diseases. Her experience prior to AstraZeneca includes marketing and strategy, investment banking, and management consulting roles at Pfizer, McKinsey, Goldman Sachs. Ashley has a Bachelor's of Arts, focus on math and urban studies from here at University of Pennsylvania, MBA, General Management from Harvard Business School, and we're honored to have her with us. A lot of really important and interesting topics to get into today. But Ashley Gaines, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
Well, Ira, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to have the chance to be on the show.
It's great having you. Before we get into all things oncology, I would love to, as we typically do, sort of start off by handing you the floor for a couple minutes just to hear a little bit more about you. I'm always fascinated by our guest backgrounds and seeing that, you started off in investment banking and consulting. Would love to hear a little bit about when you made the decision, I don't want to invest and consult on this stuff anymore. I want to manage these portfolios. Take us back and tell us a little bit of your story, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've spent the majority of my career in the healthcare space, but I did not start there. And as you mentioned, I exited undergraduate school with a double major in math and urban studies and tried to kind of parlay that into a business career, starting out in real estate investment banking. And while that was a great experience, I felt a pull to work on something that had a more direct impact on people's lives. And shortly after, made the switch over to business school, and while I was there, had a little bit of a revelation that I had a deep-rooted interest in healthcare, and realized that, when I would pick up the newspaper, because, back then you did pick up a newspaper, I would gravitate toward articles about healthcare. When I would pick up my own prescriptions, I would read every word of the label, and I came to realize that not everyone does that. And so, increasingly just felt a real pull toward the healthcare space and to the pharmaceutical industry in particular. And following business school, spent a couple of years in consulting, primarily working in healthcare, and then really wanted to be, closer to patients, closer to making a direct impact, and made the shift over to the pharmaceutical industry, where I spent 11 years at Pfizer, working across a variety of different commercial roles, and then moved over to AstraZeneca, where I've had the opportunity to spend almost the last 10 years, the majority of time, which has been on the oncology side. And now I am probably in my favorite role of all times, which is leading the US Breast Cancer Organization at an incredible time when we are, having the opportunity to make a pretty significant mark on the treatment of breast cancer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as mentioned in the bio, you've had a variety of these oncology portfolios over the years. And clearly the last couple of decades we've seen an amazing evolution of this space. Just thinking back to sort of the blockbuster lists from 20 years ago, the Lipitors and the Viagras and Nexiums and all that stuff. That's not there anymore. It's all these really highly targeted, personalized immuno-oncology agents. I saw you quoted in a press release a couple of months ago, sort of talking about as we are getting more specific and deeper understanding of cancer, and we're refining and redefining what these subgroups of patients are. The way we educate people is changing a lot. And I would love to, just hear about, how you've seen sort of that transition in your time managing these different portfolios, and how sort of the evolution of the space has occurred before your eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are so fortunate to see science advancing at an incredibly rapid pace. And, at AstraZeneca, I've been just really lucky to be part of an organization over the last 10 years where we have been able to lead scientific advancements across oncology in a number of areas. And while great science is, of course, key to changing patients' lives, science alone doesn't translate into patients getting treated optimally. And that's really where my passion comes in, and our commercial organizations come in to play that role in educating healthcare providers and making sure that patients really are getting treated optimally. And that is getting more and more complicated as we have such a rapid pace of innovation, especially within oncology, and such a more significant role of precision medicine, where tailoring treatments to individual patients is more and more important, more and more exciting, and more complicated. And so the educational piece just becomes that much more important. What is exciting today is that we have so many different approaches we can take to educating both physicians as well as patients. And of course, this is where, the digital space, in addition to the importance of continuing personal promotion, engagement through so many different stakeholders, with so many different stakeholders who play a role in oncology treatment, all becomes important. And I think that all of that picture, the engagement with the right stakeholders, the personal promotion, and the optimal use of data and digital interaction is critical to making sure that we have doctors who are all well educated about innovation in oncology, so that every patient really can be optimally treated.
And before we get to Trueap, which will be the core of what we're going to be talking about with the recent approvals, say a few words about the U.S. oncology business at AstraZeneca, because clearly, AstraZeneca we know is a big pharma company, but obviously, you're down in Gaithersburg. There was, MedImmune and sort of the long history there of pharma, biotech, immuno-oncology as it was developing. Say a few words about the organization, specifically per this franchise that you lead.
Absolutely. I feel so privileged to have been at AstraZeneca over the last 10 years, during a time when we have just been able to really grow our oncology organization in such a meaningful way and have such a meaningful impact on so many thousands of patients across a number of different tumor types. I've had the opportunity myself to work across hematological cancers, lung cancer, gynecological cancers, gastric cancer, and certainly now with the role that I'm in, breast cancer. And what I will say is that as innovative as our portfolio is, I am really proud of the innovation and the talent quality across our teams. We are so committed to making sure that these medicines that our R&D organization are, rapidly making available are in fact translating into patients being treated very differently and hopefully optimally. So it's been an incredibly exciting time. I mean, I've been at AstraZeneca Oncology when I've just seen such market growth. I mean, the number of people joining the organization from all over the country and all over the world has been remarkable. And it's just a very exciting place to work. I feel really fortunate to be surrounded by team members who share, the passion that I know I have for truly making an impact on patients. I mean, that really is what we're all in it for. And so it's been an amazing journey over the last 10 years.
Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, let's drill down a little bit on the Trueap story. And here again, you're managing the breast cancer franchise, the most common cancer, major core, source of morbidity, mortality. And clearly we've seen, as with different cancers, the personalization, the refinement of ultimately how we're targeting these tumors. In this particular case, Trueap represents, and I'll just read this from the press release, the first-in-class potent adenosine triphosphate competitive inhibitor of the AKT isoforms. And you could lecture us a bit on that, about the very unique nature of sort of all the interesting factors that go into cell growth and proliferation and so forth that go out of whack, that we're learning more and more about, the uniqueness of, breast cancer is not one thing, it's many. Take us through an introduction to what Trueap is, and then we'll get into a little bit of what you learned in the clinical trial.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very impressed with your explanation, your pronunciations. So certainly, this is as is the case with many oncology medicines. A new mechanism that we're bringing to the market. So, as you mentioned, Trueap is the first AKT inhibitor to enter the market, and Trueap is indicated for hormone receptor positive breast cancer, which is the most common form of breast cancer, affecting about 2/3 of patients. And it's indicated in the metastatic setting for patients who have progressed on their initial breast cancer treatment for metastatic disease. And most patients receive what's called a CDK4/6 inhibitor in the front line for metastatic disease. And unfortunately, over time, patients do go on to see disease progression. And when they get into the second line setting, unfortunately, there is just an incredible unmet need for new treatment options that offer both a compelling efficacy profile and also a compelling benefit risk profile. So this is where Trueap comes in. And Trueap is specifically indicated for those patients with hormone receptor positive metastatic breast cancer who possess one of three biomarker alterations. And these biomarker alterations, which are called PIK3CA, AKT1, and PTEN, are all related to a common pathway that is a driver of disease progression. And by inhibiting the signals in that pathway, together with down-regulating estrogen production, which comes through estrogen receptors,
Mhm.
Trueap is able to provide a meaningful level of efficacy and benefit risk profile to patients who have one of these three alterations. And collectively, these alterations affect almost half of patients with hormone receptor positive breast cancer. So it is a very meaningful portion of the breast cancer population. And just really excited to have the opportunity to bring in a new treatment to an area of such high unmet need.
And talk a lot. I mean, obviously there was a big splash in the press recently about the recent study in terms of Trueap in combination with fulvestrant. But talk a little bit about specifically what you learned and the outcome of that study, because that was a rather impressive result.
Yes, absolutely. Capitello 291 is a study of Trueap plus fulvestrant um, compared to single agent fulvestrant. And that is the basis for the indication that I just described. So
Right.
when I was talking about the Trueap approval, just to clarify, the approval is for Trueap plus fulvestrant,
Right.
which is a well-established medicine that actually AstraZeneca brought to the market under the brand name Faslodex,
Yep.
that has been, utilized for many metastatic breast cancer patients with hormone receptor positive disease for a long time. The Capitello 291 study looked at Trueap in this patient population and specifically saw that the combination of Trueap and fulvestrant led to a 50% reduction in disease progression or death. And that, again, is in the setting of patients who previously received another endocrine-based treatment prior to, progression. And just to clarify, endocrine-based treatments are the standard of care for patients with metastatic breast cancer who have hormone receptor positive disease. Those patients are treated with various endocrine regimens as long as they respond. And when unfortunately they come to no longer respond, they then move on to systemic therapy, which traditionally has included chemotherapy, and more recently with patients who may have what's called HER2 low disease. That's where our medicine in HER2 can then come into play. So when we're talking about Trueap, we're talking specifically about that part of the treatment journey where patients are continuing to receive endocrine therapies. And our goal is to maximize the time that patients are able to spend in that endocrine therapy part of the treatment journey. And that's what our hope, with Trueap is, that we'll be able to extend that time patients have on the endocrine therapy.
Mm-hmm. And say a few words about the biomarker testing part of this and how, clearly this is a very targeted agent, and the tumors need to be analyzed per which of these mutations exist. Talk a little bit about that, because I think, we're so used to hearing about the miracle drug. In this particular case, there are tests and other, we always hear about let's sequence this tumor, but we never really think about, okay, what's the practical? Well, here we go. Clearly a practical application here, combining drug with this important biomarker diagnostic. Talk a little bit about that part of it. I think it's really important.
Absolutely. Biomarker testing is becoming so important across so many different tumor types, and breast cancer is no exception. And when we're talking about testing in this case, we're talking about next generation sequencing, or NGS testing, which is a common set of tests. It's a gene panel that looks at a number of different potential biomarker changes that could be leading to or driving the cancer that a patient is experiencing. In breast cancer, about 60% of patients with metastatic disease are receiving an NGS test today. And the three biomarkers that are part of the Trueap approval are all already part of that test. So this is not a new test that patients need to receive. These are not new markers that need to be added to the test. They were already on the test. It's just that they weren't all actionable prior to the Trueap approval. Right. And of course, while it's great that 60% of patients are receiving an NGS test today, that means another 40% of patients may not be getting the precision medicine approach that could be optimal for them. And it's important not only for potential treatment with Trueap, but for just the deepest understanding and characterization of a patient's cancer, to be able to understand if there are specific biomarker alterations at play. So that's why it's really important, and certainly making sure that healthcare professionals and patients are well educated on what these three biomarkers are that are part of the Trueap approval, how to find them, which again is through an NGS test that many patients are already receiving or may have already received, is going to be a critical part of making sure that patients have an opportunity to benefit from Trueap.
Excellent. And looking out now a bit, I know that Trueap is also being evaluated in a variety of other trials, not just as in this case one specific combination, but clearly oncology is all about these combinations of therapies, and you're working in that area, but also being studied as monotherapy. Can you give us a little overview on sort of what's next? Because clearly it doesn't stop here. You're going to be doing a lot of other clinical development with regard to the agent. Take us down that path a bit, if you would.
Trueap is being studied across breast cancer as well as outside of breast cancer, in particular in prostate cancer. We have a number of different trials that are currently running, both in monotherapy and in combination. And in breast cancer, not only do our studies include hormone receptor positive breast cancer, which is the part of breast cancer that where our current approval exists, but also in triple negative breast cancer, which is one of the hardest to treat forms of breast cancer. And then Additionally, we're looking at prostate cancer with several trials there. So expect to hear more on, Trueap data releases over the next several years. We're excited about the potential for this medicine across these various tumors, and just to really understand what this mechanism of AKT inhibition can bring to cancer treatment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I noticed that, at the time of the trial announcement, there was also an announcement by this group, Foundation Medicine, talking about specifically their companion diagnostic related to combination interventions. And it's interesting to see sort of these things happening, in synergy. And I was just interested because, again, coming back to sort of this sort of unified topic. We have biomarkers, we have the need for greater education, and then I noticed that you also spent some time in the digital health space. Talk a little bit about where you think a lot of this is headed, because clearly the digitalization of these therapies, also is not just for educating the clinicians, but for patients, sort of the full ecosystem here. What's your perspective on where a lot of this is going? If you could just give us your top line on it.
I mean, in oncology specifically, we are clearly moving more and more toward a precision medicine approach,
Right.
which is exciting because that means that, hopefully individual patients are getting really individualized treatments that are tailored to their cancer in the very best possible way. For Trueap specifically, in our clinical trial Capitello 291, the Foundation Medicine next generation sequencing test was utilized. And so, as you mentioned, that test was approved as a companion diagnostic. And it's one of a number of NGS tests that are on the market today. And as we talked about 60% of patients today with breast cancer are receiving an NGS test, which includes a wide array of different gene alterations to assess for a given patient, including the three that are, that form the foundation of the Trueap approval. And these are biomarkers that can be easily identified on these tests. And I just think that this is an example of where we are headed in oncology in terms of being able to be as precise as we possibly can, using data, using digital technology, bringing it all together so that we can really be individualizing treatment for specific patients.
Outstanding, really outstanding. So, clearly, Ashley, there's going to be a lot of clinical development going on with Trueap, obviously a lot in terms of you managing the portfolio. What should we be on the lookout as far as Ashley gains for 2024? Talks you're going to be giving, I'm sure you're going to be at oncology conferences, companion diagnostic conferences, things of this nature, places we can run into you, meet you. Anything else on the calendar that we should be aware of as we enter the new year?
Well, I am certainly excited about the new year. I'm excited about the San Antonio breast meeting, which is coming up just next week, and will be, as it always is, a great opportunity to learn myself, to have a chance to connect with colleagues, with thought leaders across the scientific community, and really continue pushing the thinking on, what it's going to take to transform the treatment of breast cancer. As we move into 2024, and it's certainly hard to believe that we're approaching the end of 2023 already. I am really excited about continuing the journey we're on across the AstraZeneca breast cancer portfolio, not only bringing Trueap to patients, but continuing the work that we've been doing across our breast cancer medicines. We currently have on the market today two other medicines that we had a chance to introduce over the last several years in breast cancer: our PARP inhibitor, Lynparza, as well as our antibody drug conjugate in HER2, which has really significantly transformed the treatment of both HER2 positive metastatic breast cancer and defined a new sort of subtype of breast cancer called HER2 low. And, bringing these together and thinking about the impact they can have on patients, in 2024, while at the same time we're preparing for, our next wave of potential launches across these and other medicines is really exciting. And I'll share with you that, today, now including Trueap, we have 3 key medicines on the market that we've, been able to introduce, as I mentioned, over the last few years. And by the end of 2026, we expect to add another 2 medicines, and across, the full portfolio, a number of additional indications. So just really excited to be able to continue bringing innovation and transformation. And I think, in breast cancer, we all have friends and family members, unfortunately, who have been touched by this disease or who are currently, going through treatment. And you look across these different therapies and you look at the patient populations, even taking, Trueap as an example, we're talking about patients who are in their mid to late 50s with hormone receptor positive breast cancer, younger patients who may have HER2 positive or BRCA mutated disease. And these are, largely women, not exclusively women, but people who are in really the prime of their lives, who have active careers, active family lives. And so I think what I'm really excited about as I look ahead to 2024 is just being able to continue this journey where we really are having an impact, so that when we look back at this period in breast cancer, 10 years down the road, we can say, wow, there really was some meaningful transformation that took place. And hopefully, we at AstraZeneca will have played a role in really bending survival curves and changing the trajectory for breast cancer patients.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so refreshing because, we for decades we've heard about sort of this future of personalized precision medicine, and here we are. It's not just research, it's not just clinical development, but now you're getting these products out there to the people, and it's just yeah, it's so refreshing seeing it, seeing us here finally. And I just really actually wishing you the best with this product, with the whole portfolio, and everything else that you learn about these products as you continue the clinical development. Again, for everybody who is going to be listening to this particular episode of our show across the various podcast networks, or who will be watching on our YouTube channel, again, you've been listening to Ashley Gaines, Vice President and Head of Breast Cancer Franchise, United States Oncology Business Unit at AstraZeneca, doing really amazing things to transform, to redefine the diagnosis and treatment of breast cancer. Ashley, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule this morning to come talk to us, to come educate us on this really important topic. Obviously, thank you for everything you do. And as we like to say here on our show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow for so many people out there via what you do. A really amazing story.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of the discussion today. I really appreciate it.
Great having you.
Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor. Okay,
wonderful. We are recording. Okay. Okay, welcome everybody again to another episode of our show. Today, bringing you another really fascinating guest involved in creating a better tomorrow for so many people out there. Today, we have the honor of being joined by Ashley Gaines, who is the Vice President and Head of the Breast Cancer franchise for the United States Oncology Business Unit at AstraZeneca. There, she's responsible for overseeing commercialization in the United States for Trueap and HER2